Bismarck. Kissinger's doctoral dissertation on Metternich and Kastelrig was intended as a prelude to a study of Prince Otto von Bismarck, who took power as Prussia's chancellor in 1862 and proceeded to unite Germany. But it took Kissinger 13 years to finish his Bismarck piece, which he published in 1968 in the academic journal Daedalus. Though one of his least known writings, it may be the most enlightening, not for what it reveals about Bismarck, but for what it says about Kissinger and his concept of realism in world affairs. Bismarck's genius, Kissinger writes with the authority of a disciple, was the ability to deal with contending forces by manipulating their antagonisms. Because his goals for Germany were incompatible with the European order that existed, Bismarck was a revolutionary, but because he believed in an authoritarian, disciplined state, he was a conservative, a white rather than a red revolutionary. Bismarck's drive for power was based more on ego than a desire to implement a philosophy. Patriotism was probably the motive force of but a few of the famous statesmen. The Iron Chancellor once wrote to a friend, "Much more frequently it was ambition, the desire to command, to be admired, and to become famous." The same would later be said, not without some justification, of Kissinger. Similarly, Bismarck had an attitude toward truth that critics said fit Kissinger as well. The root fact of Bismarck's personality, Kissinger wrote, was his incapacity to comprehend any moral standard outside of his own will and ambition. For this reason, he could never accept the good faith of any opponent. It accounts, too, for his mastery in adapting to the requirements of the moment. It was not that Bismarck lied. This is much too self-conscious an act, but that he was finely attuned to the subtlest currents of any environment and produced measures precisely adjusted to the need to prevail. Kissinger would later argue that it was wrong to draw too many comparisons between himself and Bismarck, that he was a student of the Iron Chancellor and not a devotee. Nevertheless, Kissinger's later predilection for realpolitik and his feel for balance of power diplomacy show that his appreciation of Bismarck was not merely academic. Bismarck urged that foreign policy had to be based not on sentiment, but on an assessment of strength. Kissinger wrote, that would also become one of Kissinger's guiding principles. Henry Kissinger.